The Shepherd's Treasure. Once there lived a shepherd in a village in Iran. He was very poor, and he did not even have a small cottage to live. He was uneducated too, as there were very few schools in those days. However, he was very wise. He had a friendly and helpful nature. Many people came to him for advice when they faced any trouble. The shepherd helped them and solved their problem wisely. He became very popular because of his helping nature and words of wisdom. His popularity reached the king, and the king decided to meet him in disguise. The king visited the shepherd. He disguised himself as a shepherd. He rode on his mule and reached the wise shepherd's cave. The shepherd welcomed the visitor warmly. He shared a simple meal with the king, and the king rested in the cave for the night. The king was greatly pleased by the shepherd's hospitality and wise conversation. The next morning, as the king was about to leave, he thanked the shepherd for his generosity. Thus, the shepherd told him that he had recognized the king and was grateful to him for his visit. This impressed the king, and he appointed the humble shepherd as the governor of a small district. Soon, the people started loving the shepherd because of his humility, wisdom, and kindness, and his fame as fair and wise governor spread throughout the country. However, this does not go down well with the other governors. They grew jealous of him and began to talk to the king against him. They started plotting against him. They began to poison the king's ear against the shepherd and told the king that he kept a large part of the tax money for himself. They told the king that the shepherd always carries an iron box with him. That box must have jewels and precious stones. The king usually ignored the stories of these jealous governor, but after knowing that the shepherd actually carried an iron box with him all the time, he summoned the shepherd to the palace. The shepherd came to the palace on the camel. His iron chest was also tied on the camel's back. The king got angry that the shepherd had carried the iron chest with him even to meet him. He asked the shepherd why he kept the iron chest and what was in it. The governor smiled and asked his attendant to bring that chest. All the people were very curious to see and find what it had inside. But when the chest was opened, everyone was astonished, and even the king himself was surprised. They found no precious gold or silver or jewels, but an old blanket in the chest. The shepherd took it in his hands with pride and told the king that it was his treasure. The king wanted to know the reason for carrying such an old blanket, to which the shepherd replied in a very respectful manner that the blanket was his oldest friend. The shepherd told that the blanket was his only treasure. If the king ever wished, he could take away his new clothing, but that blanket would always be there to protect him. The king was pleased to hear shepherd's reply, and all the governors were embarrassed. Now they knew that the shepherd was the humblest and wisest man of all. The king realized his wisdom, and as a reward, he made him the governor of a bigger district immediately. Like this, the shepherd was rewarded for his honesty, humility, and wisdom. In this story, we saw that how a shepherd rose to fame with wisdom and humbleness. And even after becoming famous, he remained as humble as he was earlier. So, this story teaches us to be polite and humble in every situation. One must always remain humble even if fortune changes. Wealth is temporary and fortune may fluctuate easily. Only wisdom and modesty are the true treasure which will never leave you even in the worst condition.